Hey, what's up guys? Kalamaza here, and today we're going to be doing something a little different on the Battle for Azeroth Alpha. We're going to be looking at professions. Now, some of them have gotten minor changes, some have gotten a decent bit. And the best way I figured to see those changes was just to dive right into them. So let's take a look. Now, thankfully, all the profession trainers are in one big line here, basically in Cool Tier. So I'm just going to go down the line and highlight all of them and all the patterns, everything that they have. So let's dive right into it. The first one we have here is Leatherworking. As you can see, the basically starts at level 1 with Cool Tier and Leatherworking, and it goes all the way up to level 125, I believe so? Yes, correct. And one thing to keep in mind here is that, one of the changes that Blizzard's making in the new Battle for Azeroth expansion is that they're consolidating all the old professions that go from 1 to 700 or so down. Basically all those old patterns or recipes or whatever have you are going to be down, condensed, I believe they said from level 1 to 100 or so, and they're going to be labeled as, I believe, old world patterns, something along those lines. We can take a look here in a little bit, and I know for like scanning it gives examples of those. So diving right into leatherworking here, you see that we have a decent bit of craftable gear, and it varies from something in maybe having any level to 116. We have a few 111s, and it's easily they're trainable at level 1 for Cold Tier and Leatherworking. They're basically the same thing. A lot of patterns here you'll see later on have reduced material costs, and they're very similar to the patterns that you see on live servers in Legion right now. Where they have ranks 1, 2, and 3. They all have reduced crafting costs. Now, from what I've seen here on the alphas, they only have, technically it would be called rank 1 and rank 2, even though they don't call them ranks. They just retrain the pattern with less required reagents. So there's a decent bit of crafting gear here. It scales, item level 155 or something at 149, and they go up to 160. And you see we have some crafted bows here for leatherworking, which is interesting because leatherworkers have been able to craft bows in the past. But regardless of that, a lot of professions are getting weapons that they're able to craft they haven't been able to before. So they do have a few things here. Some things that you see, still in Legion, some things are new. The coarse leather bardings here that prevents the player from being dazed while mounted in Cool Tier is awesome. Those are always great to have. Everybody hates being knocked off their mount when they're just riding through an area with a few mobs in them. Here is the Hardened Tempest Hide, which I would imagine is probably used in random pattern, higher end patterns, whether it be for leatherworking or other professions in general, that you can make. It takes a Tempest Hide and Amber Tanning Hide, which you can get from skinning, which is not really implemented currently, but unfortunately. But that's something to keep in mind, that actually leatherworking makes that. You have your coarse leather bardings, like I said. If you go down a little bit farther here, you get to the the mid-level crafting for leatherworking. You see they have a shimmer scale diving helmet. Allows you to breathe in the water for 15 minutes, which is nice, increasing your swim speed by 100% for this diving suit. One thing to make note of here is drums of the maelstrom. These are the drums that you're going to be using for heroism in your plus groups or your dungeon groups, whatever have you, where you don't actually have a shaman, a mage, someone who can bloodlust or heroism for you. The first thing you see here, the first thing that grabs your attention, I would say, is there's an epic weapon you can craft. And one thing to make note of here, and you'll see later on, that this is actually BOP. It's a fist weapon as well for leatherworking. And the thing to note here is that it's item level 100, and it doesn't actually have a level requirement on it. Now, that could be just because it actually hasn't been updated yet, and I would imagine the item level on this item will increase over time. As you can see, I'm level 110 right now. It's a brand new, freshly made character, and all of my gear is green, and it's level 185 on each piece. So obviously this needs to change. Item level needs to be buffed, or there needs to be, item level requirement added in, because I doubt it's just some kind of transmog item. Moving on a little bit more, though, you can see it has more bows and things of the sort. One thing to make note of here, if you go a little farther, once you go past all this honorable combatants leather gear, which is just basic craftable stuff, 111 to 116, is that you actually see that leatherworkers can craft a bow, the recurve bow of the strands. Now, once again, this doesn't have an actual level requirement on it, but it's only level 142. Now, I'm not really sure where they're going with this. As you can see, it costs 15 star wood, 15 calcified bones, and 15 expulsum. I think it's how you pronounce it. I believe that's the new crafting material for Battle for Azeroth. I believe it's the new Blood of Sargeras. I believe so. Probably something you get from World Quests and random dungeons. But the thing is, that's a lot of resources, and you'll see later on, certain things don't require near that amount of expulsum. And the interesting part, like I said, there's no level requirement on this bow, and the item level is only 142 regardless. So with the rest of your materials that you're wearing, everything being 185 and obviously your Heart of Azeroth is 266. I would imagine this item level is going to change. One thing I was thinking about, one theory that I had was that, you know, maybe you craft it, you know, at a certain level, its actual item level begins to increase, you know, whenever you level up, sort of like an heirloom, which would be cool. But I mean, even if it's, you know, something you would use like starting at 110, 142 is still really low compared to, you know, the green item that I have here. So as you can see here are more hardened Tempest Knuckles. This is the reduced materials pattern for it, like I mentioned before. They also do cost 12 export sum and a fair bit of other supplies as well. But, you know, that's just, you know, basically their reduced materials pattern. As you can see here, they have mid-scale knuckles. These have agility and stamina on them versus intellect and stamina. So you have your caster fist weapons versus your actual fist weapons you're going to use for melee classes. You have another bow with a strands you can craft here, but it's just, once again, just the reduced materials pattern for it. You have a few, you know, epic BOEs you can craft that require 116. I'm not really sure specifically why some require 116, why some require 111, and because the item levels don't actually vary that much, where it like matches like the scaling level requirement versus item levels. One thing to make note of is that these are BOE as well. While the bow is and the bow and fist weapons are BOP. And when we look later into other professions, you'll see that the weapons they can craft are actually BOE. So I'm not sure why these are BOP for leatherworking, but it's actually something I like to see. I would love to see, you know, more BOP actual like weapons and items in general that you can craft for yourself coming back to the game. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully that sticks around. That being said, there are a few more patterns you can craft with your hardened Tempest leggings and like the stamina. You probably have the agility version somewhere in here as well. Oh, actually, they do have the base, you know, passive agility. I'll swap between if you are a leather or agility class versus intellect class. And that's basically just the leatherworking. Moving on here, next we have engineering. And engineering, it really sticks with its feel of what it's stuck with its entire existence in WoW. You have a whole lot of little trinkets and bombs you can use. I mean, you see here, you know, catch root seed spreader, roots all targets in a 5-yard radius at the point of impact. All enemies are within 5 yards are slowed, puts enemies to sleep for 10 seconds, you know, freezes enemies. And there's a lot of these bombs here that you actually just craft. And now, I wasn't really sure what I used them for a whole lot when I initially saw them. I figured obviously it'd be nice to have for leveling, but then I really realized also that, you know, these could be useful for Mythic Plus. I mean, engineering doesn't really have a whole lot of its own place in Mythic Plus right now, barring like a failure detection pylon or things of the sort. But you know, having just a variety of bombs here where they can, you know, freeze, stun, put to sleep, slow, deal actual damage, it could very easily, I could very easily see it having its place in Mythic Plus in certain, you know, maybe far-fetched strategies in one way or another. But once again, it has some of these random devices that they can make here. You can see this deployable attire rearranger. It'll randomly allow you to alter the look of your armor. I'd imagine this is probably just a device that lets you transmog things. I don't think it swaps you some kind of costume or something like that. But, you know, without being able to craft it right now, I'm just not sure. You can see electrostatic mount motivator increases mount movement speed by 10% for 10 seconds. Stacking up to 5 times. Once again, the higher you stack, your mount can become disoriented. It's sort of cool. You know, a lot of like actual gadgets that engineering has had for a while. You know, it's a portable stable master, deploys a boat. You know, and these are the reduced patterns for the bombs and things of the sort. Now, one thing I want to mention here is that if you look here, engineering crow's nest scope. Use permanently attach this scope to a ranged weapon, sometimes increasing critical strike by 221 for 12 seconds, while dealing damage with ranged attacks. Attaching this device to a ranged weapon causes it to become soul-bound. Now, this is something that I'm really excited about. You know, scopes haven't been a thing in game. I believe they're around in WoD, but they really haven't been, you know, really any weapon enhancements, I guess you could say, or enchantments. You know, like consider relics, something like that, haven't been in game, you know, for the entire duration of Legion. And then when we initially got into Legion, everybody was really excited about, you know, artifact weapons and relics and things of the sort, and they are pretty cool. But over time, you know, having the same weapon with the same effects, even though we got new traits and more, you know, points into said traits, it sort of became, you know, this generic feel like, okay, well, this is my weapon. I'm gonna get these 3 relics in it, and with the crucible being added in, made it even more RNG and not very fun. But I think everybody's ready for like a change to their weapons, and bringing back scopes, and weapon enchants is awesome. So, like I said, this is a scope you can add to your weapon, a bow or a gun. And if you look a little farther here, there actually here's more bombs and things of the sort. You have these ammunition as well. It's frost-laced ammunition and incendiary ammunition. Frost one permanently upgrades ammunition or ranged weapon, sometimes dealing a small amount of frost damage to your target and slowing them at 15% for 3 seconds, while dealing damage with a ranged attack, or dealing damage with ranged attacks. Incendiary ammunition says permanently upgrades the ammunition of a ranged weapon, sometimes dealing extra fire damage to your target, or when dealing damage with ranged attacks. So basically it procs off your ranged attacks from your bow, your gun, whatever you're using. Obviously now I would imagine that you're only going to really be able to use one of these at the same time. Letting you use both of them obviously really, it's not going to be a thing. One thing I'm interested in is if you're able to use, either or of these ammunitions here with this actual scope. Now, from what I see, there's only one scope pattern here, and it doesn't make mention of, you can only have one scope on your gun at one time. I mean, obviously that's pretty obvious, but it doesn't indicate either you can only use, like, it doesn't say like, unique gun enhancement or ranged weapon enhancement or something like you would expect. This is not unique in neither of these, so it makes me wonder if you can use either of these in conjunction with the scope, or just in general if you're able to use any of them together. So now once again, you have even more bombs here, random things that petrify enemies, letting them and reducing physical damage they take by 99% for 10 seconds. Your reduce materials patterns for your transmog unit and things of the sort. Now, one thing to make note of here is that this actually was removed recently, is that if you look at both blacksmithing and engineering, until about 4 or 5 days ago, they actually had 2 craftable items, one from engineering and one from blacksmithing. The engineering one, I believe, was it was some kind of engine, and the blacksmithing one was more of a frame, and when you combine them both, it actually made a mount, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, I know that the name of it started, I believe, was Monolite. I know it shares, it was like Monolite engine or something along those, that sort. And obviously, it takes Monolite ore and probably a whole lot of other things. Unfortunately, it was removed. I'm not really sure where it went, but hopefully they add it back in pretty soon. We're actually able to craft them out soon enough when we start having actual ore enemy spawning. Besides that, towards the bottom of engineering, you actually have guns you can craft. And make note of this here as well is that this gun, the finely tuned Stormsteel Destroyer, is BOP. Once again, one thing to make note of though here as well is that it does require level 110, and it's at level 188. Now, I am 110 here, and with this this freshly made character, every single piece of gear I have is 185. So I would like to see this item level improved a bit. Maybe it starts off at a level 215, something along those lines. I think that would be pretty awesome, because base item level 188 is just not really going to cut it, I don't think. Another thing to make note of here with engineering as well is, like, obviously if you compare the Honorable Combatant Stormsteel Destroyer, like I said, the gun is level 188. It requires level 110, something like this Precision Attitude Adjuster. It requires level 120. However, it's only at level 136. There's a discrepancy there, and obviously it's a mace versus a gun, but still the actual item level, like, just scaling, is way off. So I would imagine that you see both these item levels adjusted, probably a bit more towards beta, or just obviously when the game is launched. But in general, it's pretty cool that engineering and certain professions have these BOP weapons coming back that you're able to craft for yourself. And obviously while this is BOE, it could account for maybe the item level being a little bit lower because it's BOE, but it wouldn't be 136 versus 188 on a BOP at 110. So now jumping right into blacksmithing, you'll see that blacksmithing is basically, well, still blacksmithing. You've always, over the course of the game, been able to craft weapons, plate armor sets, skeleton keys, and basically it, remains pretty close to being the same as it always has been. As I just mentioned, skeleton keys are back. It allows the opening of locks that require up to 600 lockpicking skill to be opened by the blacksmith. It's pretty awesome. You know, I like this has always been a thing in game. You know, you can always get a rogue to open a lockbox for you, but having these monolith skeleton keys on you, you know, while you're out questing or certain other things, it's pretty awesome to always have around. You know, we don't have a rogue around you. You also have these mono hardened stirrups, which we have, you know, in Legion currently right now. You know, it lets you interact with items while you're currently on your mount, which is pretty nice. You know, you have that perk from, you know, the Broken Shore, but this is pretty nice to have around all the time. You also have these mono hardened hoof plates, which increases your mounted speed by 20% while on cool Terras or Zandalar. And the thing I like about these, and I'm not sure if this is currently a thing in Legion or not, I hope it is, but it's awesome to see it in BFA if it still is the effect's duration is quadruple for blacksmiths. Now, obviously, you know, it feels sort of bad saying, you know, you're the blacksmith and you have to craft these for them. You put them in the auction house, people buy them and they use them, and you know, it's for 2 hours for everybody. You know, it's for 2 hours for people that aren't blacksmiths. You can have your Jewelcrafting enchanters, but they can still use them for 2 hours. And you know, you as a blacksmith who craft them, its duration is also 2 hours. Well, now it's 8 hours, so that's super awesome. You know, it's a bit of a nod to blacksmiths and being, you know, the person that crafted this and being a, you know, master blacksmith. You're able to gain a more of a duration from them, which is awesome. Going through, you can see you can craft your battle axes, your claymores, you know, whatever a deck pounder is obviously a mace of some sort. You know, you have your mariner's helm, pauldrons, a lot of your extra plate set, a polearm, breastplate. You actually have this honorable combatants set. There's a shield, a battle axe, and weapons, and then also the whole plate set. You know, plate, boots, gloves, greaves, gauntlets, waist guard, and certain other things you can craft. The first items outside those actual things you get to, like the first epic items, I guess you could say, is Neptuline's Barrier. It's level 120 BOE shield with an item level of 136, but as I mentioned before, the item level on items will, I can pretty much guarantee be increasing. You know, just if you compare it to other items that are BOP, you know, they require level 110 and their item level is 150 or 160 or whatever, you know. And it wouldn't, you know, an item being BOP and being 160 versus an item being, you know, BOE in 136, it's not going to, having a BOE, it's not going to make a 50 item level difference, you know. So I would say chances are very highly going to be buffed. You know, as I've mentioned, you know, my gear right now, you know, on a fresh me 110 is 185 all around. So that's one thing to keep in mind when looking at this. But you can craft Neptuline's Barrier, which is a shield. It has intellect, strength, and stamina on it. Whether you want to use it for healing or tanking is awesome. You can have the Stormsteel Axe, the Stormsteel Dagger. As you can see, the axe has agility, strength, intellect, and stamina on it. When the dagger only has intellect and agility, so the dagger can be used for, you know, for casters or, like, you know, rogues and melee DPS who want to use the dagger. And the axe can be used for, you know, casters or people that want to use agility or people use agility or strength. So that's awesome. You have your choice here. Basically, you have a great sword, a spear, whatever item is suiting for you in your class. If you go down a bit farther, you also have the reduced reagent patterns, which, to be fair, they do reduce the reagents a bit. As you can see, this Neptuline's Barrier costs 25 Storm Silver ore and 4 elemental flux versus costing 35 up here and 5 elemental flux. It's not a huge difference, but it does add up. I would imagine that Storm Silver ore is really rarer and harder ore to get this expansion, so having a 10, you know, ore difference there is pretty big. You also, like I said, you have, you know, these BOE legs you can craft. I believe, yeah, a BOE belt. I believe, yeah, the shield. So there's 3 pieces you can craft here that are BOE that aren't weapons, or I guess 2 if you consider the shield a weapon. You have your BOE waist. It requires level 120. Its item level is 162 currently, and you have your BOE plate legs, which is item level 162 and requires 120 as well. It does require 50 Storm Silver ore and 20 Platinum ore. And Platinum ore, I would imagine, is going to be, you know, the good green quality ore, like the actual, like, the Corium ore, the really hard ore to find this actual expansion. So keeping that in mind, it does seem pretty pricey, and it doesn't seem to actually have a reduced cost pattern. So yeah, that's basically blacksmithing in Battle for Azeroth. One thing to keep in mind, like I mentioned a few minutes ago with engineering, is that there was a mount up until a few days ago. It was removed from the game, or I guess from the alpha, by taking the engine that you craft with engineering and combining it with the actual frame you craft from blacksmithing. Now, and once you combine them both, it makes a mount. Now, obviously, like I said, the mount is gone. I don't know what it looks like, but hopefully it'll be returning soon, and I can get a picture and actually a bit more information for you then. Now, the next profession we have here is Enchanting, and this is the one of the few that I really wanted to know more about, because you've got blacksmithing and leatherworking and, you know, I guess you could say skinning and herbalism, and they're basically the same thing. You're gonna craft pretty much the same things you've been crafting within reason for the duration, the history of the game. Enchanting always changes a bit because you got new enchants to do new things, and it's just pretty awesome overall in general. It's one of the professions that I have across multiple characters. So as you can see here, the first few enchants we have, they start at level 1. Tailoring, Herbalism, Mining and Skinning, Surveying. When surveying is pretty interesting as well. It increases the speed of archaeological surveying and digs. This is just increased speed on skinning, mining, and herbalism. It's basically what we've had for most of the expansions. You know, it's a glove enchant that you want, you know, if you're one of these gatherers, you don't really mind, which is pretty awesome and pretty good to have and always nice to see back. The new ones we have here starting at level 1 as well are sigils, apparently. I'm reading through these just as soon as I see them here as well with you guys. So we have ring enchants here, increasing critical strike by 7%. As you can see, I guess sigils are ring enchants. You know, crit, haste, mastery. We've got one here. Yeah, here so it enchants your bracers to reduce the cooldown on your Hearthstone by 5 minutes, which is actually pretty interesting. I don't believe there's any other bracer enchants that have been mentioned, so that's actually pretty cool to have around. I guess that's, you know, if you actually care enough, it's going to be the, you know, the default go-to enchant for your bracers, I suppose. But you can see here there's some random weapons you can craft, probably more so for casters. You have a wand here, you have safe hearthing, permanently enchants bracers to create an absorb shield around you while using your Hearthstone. That's pretty interesting. It's sort of like a paladin bubble, which is pretty awesome. I don't know, obviously, know if it's that strong, but it's pretty interesting. That's pretty cool to have around as well. Sea Priest wand, other wand you can craft. Swift hearthing, increases your enchant your bracers, increase your Hearthstone speed. Cool. Here are the sigil enchants again for rings, which just reduce crafting materials. As you can see here, I didn't mention as well, new crafting materials. You have shadow dust, which is probably going to be, you know, the dust of the expansion. I believe umbra shards are the blue quality, like shard of the expansion. Let me get a little bit farther down. Let me just jump down for a second here. Yep. Veiled crystals are what I would imagine is the epic quality enchanting map we're going to see for the expansion. So just going back a bit, we have our sigils for ring enchants, you know, crit, haste, mastery, and versatility. Was there a versatility enchant on one of the lower ones here? There actually is not. We have 3 sigils here, level 1, you know, crit, altering, you know, mastery, haste, and crit. And then we have 4 here. It says reduced. It actually doesn't even mention reduced cost here. Is it actually reduced the cost? Let's see. Sigil of haste, 10 shadow dust, 5 umbra shards. It does reduce the cost here for haste. I imagine it does for crit as well. There's mastery. Versatility also has reduced cost, or the same as these other ones that have been reduced comparatively. But there's no initial versatility enchant, which is interesting. I'm sure it probably will be added in a bit later. Maybe we'll make a bug report or something on that in a while. So here come the weapon enchants. This is what I've been looking forward to for a while. We haven't had it in Legion. We haven't really had a whole thing to change on our weapon. Yeah, I mean, relics are whatever, and the RNG, the Crucible, something that, you know, something, another debate on its own. But this is what I want. This is what I want to see for a while. So let's get right into this. I haven't seen these before, so this is what I'm diving into just while we're looking at them, you know, together. Enchant weapon, weapon enchant, Gale Force striking, permanent enchant weapon to proc an aura, which increases your attack speed at 35% for 10 seconds while using melee or range attacks and abilities. That's pretty awesome. That actually sounds pretty strong. I'd be interested to see what the actual proc rate on that is and how long the internal cooldown is on it. Siphoning, permanently enchants a weapon to increase your leech by 7. I mean, you go from something like this, increase your attack speed by 35% for 10 seconds, and you go to, oh, here's 7 leech. I mean, hey, it could be potentially a tanky enchant, but I highly doubt it. Maybe something where, like, you need just a lot of survivability or something. I don't know. I mean, you know, it's sort of like apples to oranges. But let me see. Enchanting weapon, enchant Tidal Surge. Permanently enchants a weapon to sometimes increase mana regeneration for until cancelled. That's pretty awesome. This is probably one of the de facto healing enchants for your weapon here as well, which is pretty interesting. Hey, I'd be interested to see what the actual mana regen is, and I doubt it's, you know, a user cancelled, you know, proc is probably for, you know, increases mana regen for 10 seconds or something along those lines. I'm not really sure. I would have to test with it, but obviously finding these, you know, items and crystals and regions and everything is going to be impossible at this point. Weapon enchant Torrent of Elements. Permanently enchants a weapon to proc an aura, which increases your elemental spell damage by 20. It's interesting as well. It's elemental spell damage, which is something obviously not every class has. Let's see here. I mean, maybe they're changing the way spell damage works, something along those lines. Maybe it's just elemental, it's just a placeholder. I'm not really sure, because at this point, I mean, if it is just elemental damage, obviously, you know, something like Affliction Warlock wouldn't want, you know, elemental spell damage. Makes no difference, and they don't want mana regen. You know, we don't care about leech, and your attack speed doesn't make a difference because we're not meleeing them with a wand or a staff. So that's interesting. I don't. I'd imagine this is probably a placeholder, or you know, something wrong with the tooltip or tooltip error or something. But we'll see. You know, we're still in the early stages of alpha. So weapon enchant, Gale Force Striking. This is basically the same enchant from earlier. It has reduced cost. It's half the Veil Crystals. Let me see. I believe it's half the Umbra Shards. Oh, it's like one less Umbra Shard. Let's see, 20 Shadow Dust versus 18. So it's basically one less crafting material versus, you know, basically 2 to 1 for Veil Crystals, and 1 less for each other one, and 2 less Shadow Dust. Yeah, it's basically the same thing here. They're all reduced materials. And here are the larger ring enchants. Okay, we have Brand of Critical Strike, Brand of Haste, Mastery, and there's versatility as well. So, you see here, they're reduced cost. Yep, there's reduced cost for these as well. So it just seems that the initial sigil of versatility is missing, like from the very initial enchants here. As you can see, there's only 3, but you know the reduced cost sigil enchants have versatility, and the base brand ring enchants have all 4 versatility as well. So, okay, moving on a little bit farther, there's some weapons you can craft. This Dressfari Sorcerer's Scepter, which is pretty cool. It's BOE. Talanji's Solitary Scepter? Yeah, I suppose. Who knows? Another wand. 2 wands. It appears they both require level 120. They're both on level 160. 1 star wood, 12 Veil Crystal, 5 whatever that is. They require the same mats. They have the same stats. And the one thing that's different is the name. So I'd imagine there'll probably be something changing between these two. I would imagine something will probably change. I would also imagine they probably look different, but I don't think they keep the same item stat-wise and material-wise everything in the game just for a different skin. But, or skin, transmog, whatever. But, okay, let's see. Yeah, so here are some higher weapon enchants, which I was hoping would come to. Okay, so these are the main ones we're probably going to be running on our weapons. Let me see here. Permanent enchants of weapons sometimes increase critical strike by 50 for 30 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Upon reaching 5 stacks, all stacks are consumed and grant you 400 critical strike for 12 seconds. So it's like a mini accurate catalyst injector. Okay, that's pretty cool. I don't, let me see. It's a weapon, not a melee weapon or whatever. So, okay. I mean, I'm wondering if this only works on actual melee weapons, because it says it enchants the weapon to increase critical strike by 50 for 30 seconds. Okay, so I'm not sure if it's like a melee specific enchant or if it works off a ranged weapon as well, but it'd be interesting to see. This is basically the same thing with a stacking mastery up to 5 stacks, and when it reaches 5 you consume it to grant 400 mastery for 12 seconds. It honestly seems like, so here we have a crit enchant, we have a mastery enchant, we have a haste enchant. This is versatility. Armor is armor. Okay, so I would imagine that all of these actually do work with ranged weapons. It would make sense, because we don't see any mentioning ranged weapons specifically or whatever. But it's for each and every stat. You have crit, mastery, haste, armor, and versatility here. So I would imagine this works across, both melee weapons, ranged weapons, whatever have you. It's an interesting set of enchants. I mean, I'm not sure if I prefer this over, the ones we saw in Mist of Pandaria. I think it was Jade Spear, or things along those lines, where it actually had certain things had a proc in them, or a visual effect and something happened, or like Mongoose. I mean, I guess Mongoose was more of an agility proc, but still, things along those lines, versus just a base stat increase. I suppose the older ones are a bit cooler, but having just such a specific enchant, having the specificity available to just put mastery or haste or crit or whatever have you, having all these options open is something that's nice as well. It really will change a bit probably depending on your stat weights, everything, whatever have you, and it's nice to have that around. So as you can see here, I believe these are just the reduced brands, the 4 ring enchants, crit, haste, mastery, versatility. Here are the wands again with reduced crafting costs as well. They still have the same stats on them. I mean, just a different name. I'm not really sure why that is, but I'm sure that'll probably end up changing. And here are the weapon enchants with their reduced cost as well. So, as you can see, verse armor, haste, mastery, and crit. So that's enchanting. It's actually pretty interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about the weapon enchants of the higher ones. I would imagine it's probably going to be a bit better for if you're actually like min-maxing a lot. Um, it's gonna be interesting as well. Like if you're using a certain weapon across multiple specs, you know, I mean, say for example, you know, like I mean, maybe one spec wants a lot of versatility, you know, and if you're playing like a triple DPS spec class, let's just say, you know, Destruction's main stat is versatility, which it probably won't be, but who knows? You know, when you swap to Affliction, you're using the same weapon. Well, you know, what if Affliction hates versatility? It very well could. I mean, it does right now. It's the stat you want the least, so that would be interesting to see as well. Um, they don't look to be like the most expensive enchants. It feels like their reagents are like less than they, or a decent bit less than they were in MOP and previous expansions when we had weapon enchants, but that's still going to be something we have to just wait and see. So we have ring enchants, bracer enchants affecting hearthstones, and things of the sort, and weapon enchants. So our neck enchants are gone, our cloak enchants are gone. We have, and glove enchants as well. So we have rings, we have random weapon enchants, glove enchants for surveying, mining, herbalism, and skinning, and random bracer enchants for enchanting in Battle for Azeroth. Now, looking at herbalism and skinning and mining is not going to be as in-depth or whatever have you, just due to the fact that there's not any patterns you actually craft or things that require things, whatever have you. But looking at the new herbs you can gather here, apparently we have here, I'm just going to go through it from top to bottom. That's basically, you know, how it's going to be. Akunda's Bite, we have Riverbud, these all let you gather Riverbud or Sea Stalk, as we can see here, Siren Pollen, whatever have you more quickly. We have Star Moss, Winter's Kiss, Anchorweed, and the basic Kulturan, Herbalism, and Herbalism training. I mean, that's basically it. These are the new herbs you can gather. I haven't actually had a chance to gather any of these out in the world yet. I'm going to go take a look after this, but from what I've heard and I've seen is that a lot of them aren't actually available yet. So, let me take a look here at skinning in Battle for Azeroth. We have skinning. It's not much to it. I'd imagine the vast majority of skinning, or just all of skinning, pretty much hasn't been put in. I mean, I can actually train it now. Let's see if there's anything actually in the skinning book or anything along those lines. Yeah, there's really nothing here. I'd imagine it hasn't been implemented yet. I heard it mentioned that none of the animals or beasts or whatever had your skinnable either. If that would make sense. So, moving on to mining, as you can see, we have basic mining. There's not really anything listed here. I would imagine. Let me just. Oh, I already banned my profession. Let me see here. We can train it and take a look. But yeah, you just have your basic smelt copper, which is, you know, a vanilla WoW, you know, ability here. It seems that skinning and actual mining really haven't been added in or haven't been fully completed yet. That being said, like I said, we're going to try and go out and look for any mobs to scan or nodes to mine or herbs to pick, whatever have you. But from what I've heard is that most herbalism and skinning aren't currently in-game, but there are a few mining nodes. However, most of them are actually bugged out below the earth. But we'll take a look regardless. Moving on to tailoring from Battle for Azeroth, we have a lot of these battle flag, you know, Phalanx Defense, Rallying Swiftness, Spirit of Freedom, whatever have you. To be honest with you, I'm not really sure what these are for. I'd imagine they're probably for something along the lines of war fronts or expeditions, but it doesn't really say what they do, and I'm not 100%. If somebody could let me know in the comments below what they're used for, that would be awesome. They all have, you know, as you can see, reduced material costs for crafting them, which is nice. The interesting thing here is that they're all craftable at level 1, and they're reduced. Well, it says that they have reduces the materials to craft them, but it's actually the same: 5 sun bleached linen and 5 sun bleached linen. So I'm sure that'll be something that's probably changing in the next few weeks, but you know, until then we'll have to see. So as you can see here as well, there's a new bag. It says once again reduced materials for crafting it, but it's the same. 5 sun bleached linen. It's a deep sea bag. It's 30 slot bag. It's probably one of the new bags for the expansion. Yep, as you can see here, one a few notches down, we have embroidered deep sea bag, which is a 32 slot bag, which is nice. It doesn't seem like they cost a whole lot either. I wouldn't imagine sun bleached linen is very expensive, and even if it is, I mean, I would imagine these are probably consumed on use or something along those lines. It leads me to believe it's not very expensive. It's probably gonna make the bag market crash or at least drop a good bit, but that's probably something that needed to happen anyways. One of the interesting things here as well is that, you know, if you haven't heard it or maybe mentioned anything, is that first aid is actually being removed in Battle for Azeroth. It's something that's been around for a while, you know, from vanilla WoW, but I mean, if you think about it, first aid really hasn't been a thing that's really been, I guess you could say, even a part of the game probably since, I think probably Cataclysm, right? I mean, I remember training, first aid in Cataclysm, but when I came back and Mr. Pandaria and kept moving forward, I never really even used it. And I would level it to max level just to have it there, but I never had any bandages on me. I never crafted any bandages. I don't think the vast majority of the player base crafted them either. I doubt the vast majority of the player base even trained it at this point, on alts or whatever have you. So seeing it merge with tailoring here, it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, it's a little sad, and I guess in a way, to see certain things going, but as the game moves on, certain things just aren't being used nearly as much, whatever have you. They need to be, I guess you say pruned or, woven in, no pun intended, to other professions or just areas of the game. Heals 6, so Deep Sea Bandage takes 1 Deep Sea Satin. It heals for 6,488 damage over 8 seconds. As you can see here, I have about 15,000 health at 110. I believe I'm sitting at about 30k, maybe 27k at 116 in my other character. So I'd imagine there's probably some higher, heavy hitting or heavy healing, I guess you could say, bandages that we're going to get to in a little bit, but we'll see. No, there are 2 slot bags. Moving on, we have some of the crafting gear we can get to. This requires level 116. It's BOE. There's legs. Once again, it says reduce the materials required to craft them. However, it's the same materials and it's not reduced. I wouldn't be surprised if these reagents changed as well. I mean, just looking through here, everything is pretty much sun-bleached linen, with the exception of this being deep sea satin. Everything is sun-bleached linen, and it's 5. So I would be surprised if, I can pretty much guarantee that all this is going to change at some point. Maybe with the next build or so. We'll have to wait and see. As you can see here, yep, once it acquires 116, item level 155, and once again, it's interesting. One thing I really like to see is professions coming back and being more useful, I guess you could say, in higher end raiding or whatever have you. We haven't really seen a whole lot of that since, I guess you could say, Burning Crusade, where you had a lot of the cloth he's wearing, the Frozen Shadow weave set, or the certain I think it was Boots of Blasting, I believe, from Serpent Shrine Caverns. It might have been a pattern from Mount Hyjal, but I know regardless, that was a pattern that you would get, and these were all BOP. You would craft them and you'd wear them, and it was the best gear. It was better than Tyr, it was better than whatever have you, and you might eventually replace them with something from Sunwell, but that was Sunwell, and you get this pattern in SSC or TK, and you're wearing these Boots of Blasting, which were a cloth pair of boots that were BOP, and they required certain materials that will only drop in Serpent Shrine Caverns or Tempest Keep, and you wear them for, I guess if you consider a Serpent Shrine Caverns and Tempest Keep a tier, you wear them through that tier, through Mount Hyjal and Black Temple, which is the tier after, into Sunwell, which you could say is the same tier as Black Temple and Mount Hyjal, but realistically, it was an unplanned tier. Regardless, it's something that you craft yourself. It was BOP, and when the pattern dropped, it was a rare item dropped. And everybody, who's gonna get it? Who's gonna get it? And the person that got it was this is awesome, because it's so hard to get. So, it's nice to see these items around and getting back on track. I would imagine the item level on them is going to change. I really hope it does, because a level 116 epic BOE from tailoring should be level 300 or so. I believe my item level is around 280 at 116 with all the dungeon gear. Look, it's 155, and looking at my cloak, it's 185. So I'd imagine this is going to change, but I really hope it's going to change, because I would like to see professions become more relevant when it comes to crafting gear and stuff. Moving through, we have some cloaks here you can craft. That apparently reduces the amount of threat you generate from spells and abilities. That's interesting as well. I would be surprised to see if threat was a thing in Legion. I think threat is one of those things where you're not waiting for 3 stacks of Sunders on bosses to start DPSing or whatever anymore. Soul Shatter and things have been removed from the game, threat reducing abilities, but Salvation you asked for a long time ago. But it would be interesting to see it come back. I really wouldn't mind it, but if the game stays in its current state, I would imagine that this equip is pretty much just flavor text almost at this point, because threat generation is having to deal with too much threat as a DPS is just not a thing. So the random additional stats is pretty cool. I always sort of like things like that. Back to WoD crafting, where you can proc, haste burst or haste crit or a pure haste or pure crit or whatever have you stats on items. That was pretty cool. It also requires level 103, I just noticed, which is pretty interesting. See, that's the thing, looking at this, it requires level 103, item level 149. 116. Item level 155. So, I mean, I really pray that these are going to be changing item level. And they, like I said, they should probably be around 300 or so. But we're way early in alpha, so we have plenty of time to actually wait and see. So, moving on, we have, like I said, just more cloaks. I believe, yeah, just it's reduced cost, but it's not, because everything is just 5 bleached linen. So, just more cloaks, random additional stats. You see, there's a decent bit of them here. So we can jump into here. Embroidered deep silk gloves, level 118, item level 160. At this point, I'm just going to ignore the item level debate. But it's a BOE, epic gloves you can craft at 118. Requires the same, reagents it's going to be changing. And there's a reduced cost version of it here. Moving on, there's, I guess level 111 greens you can craft. I suppose, let me see here. Yeah, all the actual, which is the reason why some of the, you can see here, the reagents are all the same, and all of the actual levels that require, certain levels of tailoring are all level 1. So tailoring is probably not as complete as other professions. Scrolling through though, there's level 118 epic gloves you can craft. A hooked deep sea net, roots a target for up to 35 yards away. Roots a target up to 35 yards away by 3% in a net. Roots a target up to 35 yards away by, I don't know what it means to root a target by 3% in a net for 3 seconds. I don't know what that means. Like I said, tailoring is probably pretty incomplete. But hey, it's something. So here's another bandage. This is actually half of the other one we saw. The other one was like 8600, I think. This is 4100. So this also requires level 101. I believe this one requires, let's see, what is it? Oh, it's 101 as well. And it's actually 6000. I thought it was 8000. So this is a deep sea bandage, the better one. This is a sun bleached linen bandage. Okay. So, I mean, unless they buff the numbers on them a bit more, it seems like, I'd imagine, first aid is probably not going to be, well, I guess you can call it first aid still, but tailoring bandages, I guess we can call them now, are not going to be super relevant. I mean, let's keep going, but the main one we've seen so far heals for a third of my life total at 110. More boots, red and green, some blues you can craft. Mittens, another net. Okay. This one slows a target by up to 35 yards. Oh, slows a target up to 35 yards away by 75% in a net for 5 seconds. Okay. That makes sense. Let's go look at this other one. Slows it, roots a target, yeah. So the tooltips are different here, but this one makes a lot more sense. It's probably the effect they're going for. The other one probably just has, an improper, wording, whatever have you, but I'm sure it'll change. That being said, there's really just a few more crafted grains, things you can craft. There's no weapons here that I've seen, and it seems that tailoring got first aid and, random knits with incorrect tooltips or whatever in bags over weapons, which is fine. I mean, the other professions craft BOE weapons, and if you're actually going to be using them, I'm sure they're pretty easy to find somebody who can make them for you, as the vast majority of them are BOE. So, alright, so let's jump right into Jewelcrafting now as well. Now, as you can see, Jewelcrafting, let me see, it requires level 115. Right, okay, so it goes to 125 or so. Okay, so this is a lot more complete than actual tailoring is. So, jumping right in, the very first things you can see, the 4 gems, which have the 4 base stats: versatility, haste, mastery, and crit. They all take their respective green gems to cut basically every expansion. You get Jewelcrafting, you train the first things, they give you the mediocre gems. It says it requires item level 680. I would imagine it's probably just hasn't been changed, because you can see with the stat squish and everything, you're not going to hit 680. There's nothing going to be anywhere near 680. So I would imagine it hasn't been changed yet. But these are the first 4 gems you can have, and they're green. They're going to be green cuts. Let me see. Moving on here, actually pretty interesting here. You can see that there's two staffs you can craft. They have differing stats on them. One has, let's see here, it's like 20 more stamina or 20 more intellect on it. The same haste and mastery, the same weapon damage and speed. They both require a mage. They require different mats though, so I guess that'd be something that'd be interesting. I guess look into it. It only requires level 90 as well, so I'm sure a lot of these requirements for levels or item level or whatever have going to change. It's also interesting to see it requires a mage specifically. I don't know why that is. It's pretty interesting. I mean, having class specific weapons, class specific weapons. But I mean, having a level 90 green is not going to be too impactful. So there might be a reason behind that. Maybe it gets changed later on. Moving on here, we have the rings that you can craft. Let's see how many there are. There's 5. And it's very similar to the 5 rings we crafted in Legion. You know, they have their respective stamina on it. They're all the same when it comes to the actual level of stamina. They require level 110. You see they require the new gems. I'd imagine Amber Blaze is probably the new blue quality gem. We'll probably get to that in a little bit and see a little bit of ore and this Expulsum crafting material that you've seen across a lot of professions. It might come from dungeons or World Quest, whatever had you. Might be the new Bloodasar Garrus, or the new crafting material for the expansion you get through World Quest. They're basically very similar to the rings that we see now. They have you have your stamina on it, you have your socket, you have your 1 guaranteed stat. You've got crit for Amber Blaze, you've got haste for Owl's Eye Loop, you've got versatility for Royal Quartz Loop, mastery for Titled Amethyst Loop, and crit for Amber Blaze Loop. This is the reduced crafting material. Okay, so you have 4 rings. Sure, you have 4 rings. I guess this is... I don't know where the reduced crafting material versions of these are. Maybe they're down farther. I don't know why this is here. It's just whatever. You have 4 rings. And they also proc random additional stats. Now, once again, that could be... You gotta have haste here. You can proc crit. You can proc mastery, versatility. You can proc a double haste for it as well. And it would be Owl's Eye Loop of the Quick Blade, or I believe something like that it's called. But regardless, these are the 4 rings you can craft. Amber Blaze, Owl's Eye, Royal Quartz, and Titled Amethyst. Basically the same thing as it is in Legion right now. Moving on. These seem to be some of the new gem cuts. They're blue. Let me see. Deadly Amber Blaze 4 crit. We go up here. Got 4 crit on Deadly Soulstone, or Soulstone, whatever you want to call it. I would imagine that the stats on these are going to be increased. I guarantee the stats on these are going to be increased, or the stats on the other ones are going to be decreased, one way or another. I'd imagine the item level requirement is going to be reduced as well. I mean, the main thing to take away here is you can see the new reagent, or the new gems, are Amber Blaze and Titled Amethyst. I believe mastery gems are orange? I can't remember. Yellow or orange. I believe crit is orange, so this must be yellow. Regardless, those are some of the new gems you're going to be taking away from things. Yep, and here are the rest of the rings that have the reduced crafting costs on them. The Royal Quartz, Titled Amethyst, and Owl's Eye Loop. I'm not sure why they're out of order, but that's okay. Yep, here's the blue versatility cut, Royal Quartz, and which is also the same items used in these rings. So that confirms that these take blue quality gems. I believe there's one more cut here as well. I'm not sure, but I guess we'll take a look and find it at some point. You can see here there's more craftable, honorable combatant staff of alacrity or intuition, whatever have you. But the same, more 20 more stamina, or 25, whatever on this, whatever it is, 27 comparatively to this. I'm not really sure why that is. Having it be, mage specific is interesting. Once again, having it be level 90 is sort of odd. Maybe it's like a transmog craftable item or something along those lines. I'm not really sure, but we'll see later and farther on in the alpha. See, more staffs. And here are the epic gems. They're like the Saber's Eyes from Legion currently. These are the epic versions. It's interesting to see that they're going to be craftable at launch. They provide the 3 main stats: agility, intellect, strength. There's no stamina. They're Kraken's Eyes instead of Saber's Eyes, which is interesting. It doesn't say that they're unique currently, and with they also have the incorrect tooltip on them, or with 680 or text, whatever, what have you. But they're not. I'd imagine they're unique. Like I said, not everything is finished on here, but having them available at launch, or at least at this point, looks like they would be available at launch. It's interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's okay, but it's also pretty interesting to see, the epic gems coming in later in the expansion, whether it be from certain patterns, certain raids, whatever have you. But I guess we'll see how things go on.
See you later.
Pleased to meet you.
Now, looking at Inscription here, I haven't actually looked through it at all. It seems that it does have the crafting level requirements on it, so hopefully they're a little bit more, it's a little more dumb than the other ones. So you can craft offhands here, which is interesting. Actually brings us a throwback to Legion, where they can craft offhands as well. gonna be interesting to see. I know they could craft balloon ones. I believe they could craft higher level epic ones. I'm sorry, not in Legion, in Wars of Draenor. And it's gonna be interesting to see if they can craft the epic ones, higher level ones here in a little bit as well. Let's just dive right in and take a look. It takes 50 light parchment, 25 ultramarine ink, and 12 or 10 crimson ink. Seems to be very similar to the reagents that Inscription's required for since it's basically initial existence. As you can see here, we have Tome of the Quiet Mind, which is unfortunately probably confirms that the same talent changing system is going to be carrying over into Battle for Azeroth that we have in Legion. I'm not a big fan of it. I would rather just be able to change talents freely. I understand that's probably not, something that Blizzard's willing to do. And to be fair, I think there's probably some middle ground you could find between using these tomes every time you want to change some minor talent and, having it being able to change freely. But I'm not really sure what that is. So I guess this is probably just the best compromise you can have. They are back. The requirements are there. Yep, basically the same things as well. While not in combat for 1 minute. It's interesting here. It's a scroll of unlocking. Allows opening of locks that require up to 550 lockpicking skill. This is very similar to the Blacksmithing skeleton keys. I do know that the skeleton keys, however, we looked at a little bit ago, go up to level 600 lockpicking skill. So that's interesting. It looks like Blacksmithing has a little bit of an edge there, but I mean, you can just find a rogue to lockpick stuff too, regardless. So here's the reduced cost of Tome of the Quiet Mind. 25 light parchment. You get 25, 20, and 10. 25, 18, and 8. So same light parchment. Everything else a little different, but yeah. Moving on, we have War Scroll of Battle Shout. Increases the target strength and agility by 7% for 30 minutes. If the target is in your party or raid, all party and raid members will be affected. This is interesting. I actually hadn't seen these, but this is pretty awesome. These actually pretty awesome. This is basically the way to fill a spot. If you don't have a warrior in your raid, if you don't have a priest in your raid, if you don't have, what is this, a mage, arcane intellect, this is awesome. This is so I mean, one of the changes Blizzard wanted to make heading into raids was I feel like they've gone back and forth on this, where they said bring the player, not the class, right? And obviously you look back to Mythic Blackhand, whatever have you. We have 3 or 4 hunters using Aspect of the Fox, so you can keep casting on the move for the entire first phase, or second or third, whatever have you. And heading into Battle for Azeroth, they're bringing back specific class buffs and everything, which is awesome. Warlock's supposed to have Curse of Elements, and unfortunately we lost that to Demon Hunters as well. I'm sure Demon Hunters are going to get Drained Soul. They take all our abilities and leave us with a shell of what we used to be. But regardless of that, having us, this is basically, if you don't have a warrior in your raid, well, you can use this. If you don't have a priest in your raid, you can use this. If you don't have a mage in your raid, you can use this. So that's pretty awesome. I'd imagine we scroll down more, we might see some more. We'll take a look in a minute here. Codex of the Quiet Mind, same thing, just basically the mass Tome of the Quiet Mind. Pretty nice to have around, raid-wide, party-wide, whatever have you. Good to go there. Contracts for House Proudmoore, House Stormsong, House Waycrest, House Contract Tortolan, Voice of Azeroth. A bunch of these contracts, they enter a contract with whatever, House Waycrest, House Stormsong, to gain reputation with them. Every time you complete a world quest on Cool to Rest of Zandalar, very similar to the Cataclysm, and I believe there are a few other expansions like BC, where you can wear the tabards and gain rep with whatever faction you were wearing in said dungeons and world quests, whatever have you. So that's pretty cool. Reduced cost on Codex of the Quiet Mind. This is interesting here. Darkmoon Card of War. I haven't actually seen the Darkmoon decks or what they do, but we know that Darkmoon decks typically have always been pretty valuable at the start of an expansion, and sometimes they put out updates to them later in the expansion, or when they add out, when you were able to use Obliterum in Legion to upgrade them. The tanking one was relevant for a while, and in past expansions, sometimes the caster one's been very good for a while. It just depends on what it actually is and what it pertains, or what stats it gives, what proc it gives. But seeing this is back in general is pretty awesome. They're always something that's like, okay, people are scrambling to get their trinkets ready and everything, and you can't get that trinket from that one dungeon before the first raid while you're getting a Darkmoon deck. Sometimes it carries through for, like I said, a few bosses or a whole raid. It's pretty cool to have around. This is always awesome to see back. It's one of those cool things that's been around forever. I'm glad to see it back. Mass Milling Herbs, we said earlier with Herbalism. Ahuna's Bite, Anchorweed, Riverbud, Sea Stalk, Siren's Pollen, Star Moss, Winter Kiss. Here are more more offhands. Let's see. This is 138, level 100. Where's other offhands at? Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like these are the same. Elemental enhancement and reverse wounding. I believe it's like the same as before. There's different names, but they have the same stats on them. Yeah, I'd imagine they'll be changed as well. Higher item level, maybe actually, because it only requires level 100, but different stats. Because mystical mastery, robust regeneration. I'd imagine the stat distribution will be changed on them, or just stats in general will be changed to make them more so fitting towards their names. Darkmoon Card of War, reduced cost. Tome of more offhands, whatever have you. And we actually don't see more of the war scrolls. It's interesting to see. I like having these around a lot. I know that like you're probably going to be missing some. Like you're not going to have every class in every raid all the time. So these war scrolls are going to be awesome to have around to actually gain. Those buffs that you're missing raid wide or party wide. If you're in a certain party, you really want that fortitude buff to get through this tough boss or something along those lines, which is awesome. I'm not sure if they're going to implement the rest of the war scrolls, or maybe I believe I said Demon Hunters, took Curse of Elements from Warlocks. I'd imagine that they probably don't implement a 5% damage, buff. Like that's more so a debuff that goes on the actual boss or whatever. Curse of Elements was a dot. It was a debuff. And you look at these three. This is a raid-wide buff. This is a raid-wide buff. This is a raid-wide buff. So I would be surprised to see them implement like the Curse of Elements ones or the debuffs actually use on bosses, but like the armor piercing ones, I think rogues have. I'm not sure, but regardless, having these war scrolls around for actual raid buffs is pretty awesome, pretty handy as well. So, yeah. Moving on, Alchemy. Let's see here. Now, I haven't really looked at Alchemy a whole lot. I know that Hellstones or Hell Potions have been not as valuable with Hellstones being buffed so much in Legion. Heading into Battle for Azeroth, we're gonna have to see what the actual ratio is of health they restore to actual your Hellstone usage, how much Hellstones restore. But regardless, like I said, let's jump right in. The Coastal Healing Potions require 3 Star Moss, and Crystal Vial restores 5,900 health and requires level 100. I'm not sure what this scales to with like comparatively to the current health potions on live servers. I'll probably take a look at that and let you know. If somebody knows, let me know in the comments below. Looking at forward as well. Okay, perfect. Coastal Mana Potion restores 0 mana. That's cool. I'm gonna have plenty of those in my bags. Obviously that's going to change. Probably be something similar, about the same ratio like of health like here comparatively to live servers whenever they scale them all down, but these are your basic healing and mana potions. Your rejuvenation potions, which nobody really uses, restores the same amount of health and 1,288 mana. That's interesting here. It restores the same amount of health as this healing potion, but it restores very little mana. I'd imagine this mana potion probably restores more, but that's something I guess to keep in mind. Is that this is the same health as this. So I imagine that one of these two will probably be changing health and mana wise or something, but we'll have to wait and see. Reduced cost of rejuvenation potions, lightfoot potions. This is the new fast movement potions. I forget what they're called on live right now. Skystep potion. This is probably the new Skystep potion. It's always nice to have these around, especially in Mythic Plus or certain other strategies require these, whatever have you. So it's nice. Potion of Concealment, hides you from detection as long as you're standing still. Interesting. I'm sure it could be used in certain scenarios or quests you're trying to just stand there and wait for a mob to come by or something along those lines. Sea Mist Potions turns you into a cloud, allowing them to fall slowly from great heights and float over water surfaces. This is pretty interesting. It would be interesting to see if this is actually usable like in raids and dungeons. I'd imagine it probably would be, but it could be something sort of similar like to gliders. I mean, gliders would get you a long distance as well, but there were certain uses for gliders in raids or just dungeons for falling, from areas really high down to an area below. But they made it so you can't use gliders in dungeons anymore or in raids anymore. So that's interesting to see. I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. It'd be nice to have around to have a few, obviously, for leveling and things of the sort. So, when attacking, has a chance to create a burst of poison around the bound person, dealing 1,770 damage, split evenly among. Okay, so it does a small, AOE. This elixir, maybe you drink it, it has a chance to at least. So it's interesting. Elixir replenishment. Put you in an elevated state of focus where they can restore 2,580 mana over 10 seconds. Okay, so this is basically, you know, the healer sit down and drink of the expansion. Interesting to see here, it does restore only 2,580 mana. And looking up here, the rejuvenation potion restores 1,288 mana. So it sort of does make me think like that, you know, the mana potion might be restoring a lot less mana than I'm actually thinking. Because obviously there, you know, let's just say this mana potion does restore 1,288 mana. I mean, it would make sense to have this, you know, elixir replenishment restore twice that, but you can't move and you're defenseless. You know, basically how drinking is now for healers. It would make sense, but with that, until that, you know, mana potion, you know, tip is fixed, we're not going to be able to tell for sure. The new armor potion, steel skin elixir, increases your armor by 159 for 20 seconds. Okay, so and we're getting into some crafted alchemy trinkets now, which is pretty cool. Let's see. So it's a base 43 versatility. On equip, it restores 2,000, basically 3,000 health whenever you kill a target that yields experience or honor. It's not bad for leveling. I mean, I don't know if I would imagine it probably scales with your level. I guess it might. I mean, I'm not sure if it's upgradable. Like I said, with something equivalent to Obliterum that we have in Legion or not, or yeah, in Legion. Because 2,950 health is a decent bit. Like at 110, as you can see, I have 15,000 health right here. But at 120, you're probably going to run around 40,000 health at least, you know, as a DPS. So it's not going to be super relevant there, unless you go to large leveling poles. Could be useful there in certain situations or soloing spots. We'll have to wait and see. There's the typical Alchemist Stone you see every expansion. Base 43 versatility. When you heal or deal damage, you have a chance to proc your main stat. It's always chosen, and it also increases the effect that healing and mana potions have on the wearer by 40%. So I mean, it's the same thing you always have almost every expansion, but it's always nice to have. Just like the Dark Moon deck, trinkets or whatever. You know, if you can't, you know, find that one trinket you need before the raid, whatever, you know, situation you're in, you can grab this. It only requires Terran Alchemy level 1, so that's pretty cool. The random transmute cloth to skins, not too odd. We have transmuting fish to gems. Okay, it's a little different. Herbs to cloth, herbs to ore, meat to pet. I would imagine some kind of battle pet. I'm not sure. It's on a cooldown for 7 days versus the other one's not being on a cooldown. So I'd imagine it probably does transmute into some sort of type of battle pet or something along those lines. Ore to cloth, ore to gems, ore to herbs. I was really hoping for meat to pants. That's my favorite one. Dang. Yeah, this is only once on a cooldown. I'd imagine it probably yields you something that's, you know, whatever, the quivering sack, whatever's in it, is probably something that's, you know, relatively valuable. It's on a 7-day cooldown, so it should be. You know, it also requires a little bit more than, you know, at least a bit. 10 meaty haunch, 10 stringy loins, 5 bloodstained bones. So, you have, you know, your reduced cost of your elixirs here, your steel skin elixirs, your reduced cost of your trinkets, your new sky step potions. Let me see here. I believe this is the reduced cost. Surging. I believe this is. Let me see. Surging Alchemist Stone versus. What's the other one here? Where's the Alchemist Stone at? Siren's Alchemist Stone versus. It was that Surging. Okay, it's 43 versatility, 160 proc, and 40%, right? Yeah, it's the same thing with different names. 7 Anchorweed, 10 Akuna's Bite, 10 Winter Kiss. Okay, so this one takes 7 Siren's Pollen and an Expulsum or whatever, which is probably one of the crafting mats of the expansion. So, different mats, I'm sure they'll probably change things up a little bit potentially, or one will be removed, whatever have you, but they do the same thing right now. So we'll have to wait and see what that does later on. Here are the flasks for the current expansion. Flask of Endless Fathoms increases intellect by 59 for 1 hour. Intellect potion or intellect flask for expansion. Agility flask for expansion. Flask of the Currents. Flask of the Undertow, 59 strength for 1 hour. Flask of the Vast Horizon, stamina for 88 for 1 hour. And this is actually this is very interesting. Let me see. Copies the wearer's current 43 versatility. Use copies the wearer's current flask buff at a fraction of the power. Last 12 seconds. Okay, so it's actually pretty interesting. So I mean, versatility is obviously, you know, flat damage and damage increase and damage taken decrease, or, you know, basically what I'm saying. Using it copies the wearer's current flask buff, but at a fraction of the power. Last 12 seconds. So it can almost be like a small CD, like if you're a tank. I mean, I guess if you're a caster or whatever, if you're a tank, if you're a tank, you use it, and if you're using a stamina potion, it provides you a bit more health, or if you're a caster, it provides you more intellect, or more agility, or more strength, if you're a melee. It's interesting. We haven't actually seen a trinket design like this before. It's pretty cool. It only lasts 12 seconds. It's only on a 1-minute cooldown as well. So I mean, honestly, it's not bad at all. I guess you get 20% uptime on it, every minute, which is pretty cool. Surging Alchemist Stone, as I said, it's reduced mats, the same stats on them. Reduced mats to the flasks, and it appears to be most everything from Alchemy for now. So some things will be changed a little bit, as we probably know. Some things, go through a little bit of changes here and there, but for the most part, Alchemy seems to be pretty close to being done. There's not really anything besides the mana potion and the random trinkets with the same stats with different requirements that we saw that probably need to be changed much. And that being said, that's most of Alchemy, and I believe that's most of the profession, actually all the professions for Battle for Azeroth. So now I'm going to actually try and head out into the world and try and find some actual herbs or mines to mine here. I'm not really sure if there's actually any up. Now, I did hear a bit earlier that there are some mines I know you're able to mine, but unfortunately most of them actually are either underground, spawning underground, or fallen underground. And I'm not really sure, what that really entails, but I know this, like I said, this is alpha, and there's a lot going to be changing. Honestly, a lot of it's going to be broken in general. So I'd imagine it's probably going to be some herbs along the riverbed here. We're going to take a look briefly. One of the things I really like so much about Tiergar's Town is just the scenery. Like, it reminds me so much of, like, just, the zone in Grizzly Hills. The zone in Wrath of the Lich King. It has that Grizzly Hills feel. Meets more like modern day kind of like city. It's just pretty awesome. And, it's something you really haven't experienced a whole lot in the current WoW. I mean, I'm glad that, I've enjoyed Legion, and I enjoyed, Warlords of Draenor. Warlords of Draenor, I think, was probably one of the best expansions for raiding in general, even though the vast majority of people disagree with me. People were saying even in Warlords of Draenor that they were getting tired of having to deal with, the green. Hellfire Citadel was enough green. We heard heading into Legion and Emerald Nightmare that, the vast majority of Emerald Nightmare is, red. Just there's so much red everywhere. People are getting sick of this, it's monotone green or this red. And if you look at the raid that came out most recently, or one of the raids came out most recently, Nighthold, a lot of people say that Nighthold's actually probably one of, if not the best raid in the current expansion, and I probably do agree. I thought Trial of Valor wasn't the best. I mean, once again, it was one of those raids where it was sort of similar to Halls of Valor, which we had already seen. While that wasn't bad, it was okay. I felt it wasn't like rehash content, but it had that back feeling of like we've sort of already been here. We sort of already dealt with Odin, or at least a decent bit in Helya, and let me see what this actually is here. A little bit of Odin and Helya, and I guess we have to kill these guys. We've already dealt with Odin and Helya a decent bit, and we're more so at the point where I thought I used Havoc there. Okay, we're more so at the point where we need to oh boy, okay. I don't have my actual UI set up for this, but hey, we're gonna give it a shot. More so have to deal with their backstory, which is something that I felt was sort of neglected a bit at the beginning of the expansion, and after we actually finished in Trial of Valor, it was sort of just pushed in the back burner again. Obviously we killed Helya and we freed Odin, but we really didn't hear anything else from him the entire time. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. I see he's been actually implemented in game. Yeah, we haven't actually really seen Odin after we kill Helya, and it was pretty much that was just it. But heading in the Nighthold, we had Gul'dan coming over from Hellfire Citadel. We already knew the backstory on it and everything, and we knew, within reason what was going to happen. We were going to be fighting Gul'dan, and we weren't sure what was going to happen with Illidan. He had been taken early in the prison. He basically knew that Gul'dan had Illidan, entrapped in the prison, and it was something he was doing something with Sargeras, but you weren't really sure what. But regardless of that, you got to the end of it, and every boss was unique, and every boss was just, pretty awesome in its own way. You had Star Augur, which was just different from every other fight in there. Tichondrius had its own demonic kind of feel. Trilliax with the cake bosses for it, just like a fun boss you had. And honestly, the progression scale was great. The first three were really easy. The next few were relatively easy. And the final star auger was like, okay, this is a step up from like the last few, like, and then when you hit Grand Magistrates, it was like, okay, this is a step up from Star Auger as well. And you hit Gul'dan, this was like, okay, this is like a step up again, you know. And Too Much Garrus is okay. Once again, it was a lot of the Legion, Fel, Green, and things along those lines. And I really didn't. I don't think a lot of people actually really thoroughly enjoyed Too Much Garrus, especially because like the ramp up on how high the last 3 bosses, like difficulty-wise, were compared to the other ones. And even when you look at actual Taurus, you know, on the Burning Throne. Gosh, I don't think we're going to find any ore or any actual herbs up, guys. I'll see if I can actually find some online and edit them in. But for the most part, I'm not sure if these are going to be spawning. Or actually are still spawning. But getting back to what I was saying, if you can look at like in Taurus, you know, just so much of it was like, it was just the first, you know, what, 9 bosses were so easy compared to, you know, the rest of them. The final 2. Agrimar was, you know, a 200 or so white, 150 white or so boss, depending on, you know, your guild and what you killed it with, whatever. Argus is like a 350 white boss, you know. But I mean, Coven should have been much more. Look how awesome this city looks. This is just awesome. I mean, I feel like Coven really should have been more so like, honestly, like a 90 to 110 white boss. But like, I remember we went in and killed it. We killed it in 12 pulls, you know, and like they added a 4th boss into the fight. You know, spoilers, but I mean they add a 4th boss into the fight. You're fighting 4 bosses or whatever. Even though you're fighting 2 at once, it still had an epic feel. Like they're adding a 4th boss thing with a whole new set of abilities, and it was just you half range tanker and interrupter, and you know, just don't get hit by the chain, and it's sort of over. And that was disappointing to me. But you know, getting back to what I was saying and everything, I really feel that, you know, heading into this expansion, just the new zones and everything, you're away from the Legion, you're away from so much of what has made the last 2 expansions just sort of run together as much, and it's just a whole new zone. You know, if you quested through Drustvar or, you know, Quiltera, so even any other Horde zones, they're amazing as well. You know, and the scenery is just awesome. You know, it truly is some of the best, I would probably say the best, you know, zone, just scenery, I think they've put out in general. So, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to find any nodes or any herbs to mine. I suppose they're probably not spawning, or the ones that have fallen through are probably just despawn at this point. You know, I'll keep an eye out for future builds and see if there's anything else like that. And if I can find any actual visual, you know, images of them being mined or whatever have you online, I'll put them in right here in the video, if not. But yeah, I mean, like I said, there should be some along this riverbed or something along, you know, at least this hill here at some point, and unfortunately that popped up. So, but like I said, guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this look at the professions helped you guys out. If you guys want to see more World of Warcraft and Battle for Azeroth content, like, follow, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps. If you want to see me, I stream live on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/livewire_98. And if you want, you can follow me on Twitter as well. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day. Peace.